Well, hi there. You're listening and or watching to Podcast is Broken, a podcast where we attempt to make Canadian news and politics fun-er. Sometimes fun-est if we can get away with it. We usually can't, though. We usually get cut off at around fun. Or just F-U, actually, we usually get stuck at. My name's Brittlestar.
My name's Steve Boots, and I maintain it's more fun.
My name is Lisa, and I'd like to get past the FU.
One day.
Well, it's
One
day.
The goal.
Uphill
It's
battle.
the goal.
Uphill battle. You're both looking well, by the way. You're both
As
looking
are you.
lovely.
Thank you.
How are your travels?
The travels were good. Okay. Got back from the UK on Friday, which was nice. I greatly enjoyed my time over there, but it's always nice to come back home. But I'm disappointed. I've been to the UK 3 times, and each of those 3 times I've come back, and everything's by machine when you come through customs and border control now at Pearson Airport, and you just put your passport in this, but you still have to give a sheet over to at least 2 human Canadian Border Services people, and not one of them. So it's 6 in total that I've exchanged glances with, moments, if you will, and they haven't said my favorite part, which is "Welcome home."
Oh.
And have you ever had that at airports? I love it. I love it so much.
They
go,
know.
"Welcome home."
The little flourish. See, I'm not going to lie. I struggle in airports for the sole reason that I am mustering every ounce of willpower I have not to say a joke that's going to get me arrested.
That's
Right.
smart.
It takes
Right.
everything I can. When they're like, "Is there anything untoward in your bag?" And I'm like, "Oh, I want to say something."
If only.
Untoward. Do you get the only 18th century border guard?
Yes, they have big twirly
Squire,
mustaches.
is there something untoward in your
Good
bag?
sir, is anything untoward in your baggage, in your carriage bag?
Anything of an explosive nature?
The valet will drop it over there.
So thanks for listening to the podcast. We'll see you guys
And scene.
and scene. So we're going to talk about a couple of things this episode. I was going to say, first of all, let's go back before I jump ahead. I was saying that you both look well, specifically Steve, because Steve, you had COVID recently.
I did,
and
indeed.
you're looking well now.
Yes, my main residual effect is that my voice sounds way cooler now.
I don't know about that.
know.
Oh, yeah. Listen, it's so gravelly and makes me sound authoritative.
I'd get your ears checked, maybe. just in
Oh,
case.
yeah, no,
They say
it's
COVID
like-
can affect the ears.
Just ready to go. This is just oozing credibility.
It's nice to have you healthy.
The second
Healthy and
consequence of
oozing.
COVID is delusion.
Yeah, exactly. Sense of smell, delusions of grandeur.
Honestly, it's funny because I never really had more than a bit of a cough. The main thing is that I stayed home to be, careful of other people.
Sure.
So
Sure. I think, that's good. Well, I'm glad you're back in action. It's nice to see you healthy and happy because you looked terrible last week.
I know.
You
You should
look bad.
you should have blurred him out.
we AI'd him instead. Speaking of AI, as that was a nice segue, wasn't it?
go.
I wanted to share with the two of you, which you haven't heard. As many people will know, AI is, of course, a big topic of discussion, and people are using AI for writing things and for finding out the wrong answer to things. I think it was our youngest son, Gregor, who was trying to find out, I think I mentioned this before, his grade point average or something. And he'd say, "Are you sure?" And it'd go, "Oh, well, let me try again for you." And it's also our oldest son, Owen, who has threatened that his nose will fall off of his face if it doesn't do something for him. And it panics. And I think it's over that panic now. And it's calling his bluff, basically. What's happening.
yeah, gaslighting AI
do
is
it.
kind of fun.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, there's also other services like right now quite popular. There's some music generating services. Now there's lots of TikToks about this stuff. There's a great account that just makes like old vintage looking
Yes.
record covers and does like 1950s style or barbershop style sort of tunes that are just bizarre. What's the one that's something about my arms are stuck like this?
It's my arms are just effing stuck like
Effing
this,
stuck,
and
yeah.
my wife and I sing it all day.
It is so good.
It is so good. I think it's a good example of how it's serving a purpose. It's like someone could have spent the time to write that tune, but why? Why bother?
Right.
It's not the other part. So anyway, in the spirit of that, I had AI generate us a theme song, and Owen is producing today. So Owen, if you wouldn't mind playing that, we'll just take a listen to it. That'd be great.
So excited.
In headphones, the listeners are waiting, their ears tuned to stories so wry. With humor and wit-breaking news they'll transmit as Podcast is Broken goes by. Podcast is Broken streams nigh, and it's
Keeps going.
speak, laugh, inform, jest away every part.
Why is it so sad?
This show's sad.
In airwaves where silence is golden, words fly to the beat of the heart. With satire they'll chart every province and part, while Podcast is Broken play smart. Oh, Podcast is Broken a start.
Not bad,
They'll
right?
just laugh and lighten in this art.
How many verses does this have? This is
It's the records of
magnificent.
the Edmund Fitzgerald length.
I have a vision of us on like a mountaintop with the wind blowing.
Well,
No, this feels like the song we sing at the end of our careers, sadly, in a bar. Gathered
the rest.
around a
The
piano.
North's news retold, not so bitter and cold. With a wink and a nod, they rely. Oh, Podcast is Broken the tide. As they speak jokey delight, they embark.
not bad, right?
It's very Simon and Garfunkel.
It sounds like it could
It's
be
like-
played at our funerals.
Well, maybe it could be. That can still be arranged. There's still time. I like. It sounds like we've hired or commissioned Al Stewart, Year of the
Yes,
Cat guy.
yes.
The Year of the Cat. It sounds like we've commissioned him to write a tune. That's not a bad thing. Totally fine. That was just a sweet
Magnificent.
little diversion for everybody. I hope you enjoy that, and I'll make sure that we send a copy to both of you, and so that you can just play it.
Oh, thank goodness.
You want to get amped up
When I'm driving.
for the show.
just really bring down the room.
Time for another
I
podcast is broken recording session. Time for me to get low.
I feel like it was going for Cheers and didn't get there.
I like
Yeah,
the dramatic.
I can't even remember what the prompt was, to be honest, for it. I'll have to look it up to see, but I gave it the name of the podcast and told it whatever I told it, the style of music, and it just generated this abomination.
Amazing.
So next week
I hope you
I
enjoy
would like the 1950s ones that are absolutely
Okay, we'll
I
see if we
just
can do that.
love
That
that
could be a
AI
thing.
has been used for like horrors beyond man's imagining and silly little tunes about our podcast. Like,
Yeah,
that's
it's
really where it goes.
It's not
Yeah.
a tune, it's an anthem. Thank you.
It's an anthem, exactly. It could be AI could be used for curing diseases, solving world hunger, but why not make a fun little jingle
No,
theme?
I just love
you know
the
what I
Little
mean?
ditty.
Yeah, we got AI to do all the art so that we could do all the accounting.
Finally.
Really got those priorities lined right up.
Right up. Yeah.
Okay, so sorry. Here, what we're going to talk about today is a couple of things. The first thing we're going to talk about is there was a video that went around this past week
was
of leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre. I hope that the captions get that name right. They always give a weird spelling of it. Fantastically coming out of a trailer. I believe it's in PEI. Does that sound right?
Brunswick.
Yeah, it's on the border
Brunswick?
between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia.
Right. Okay. Sorry. And he comes out of the trailer looking a little
Worse for wear?
not quite as polished.
We'll say
as
not
perhaps
himself.
he has. Yeah,
We're going to be very careful
not-
not to make any specific allegations.
I agree. I think just he looked a little bit different, and not insinuating anything there. I'm just saying that he looked a little different. People are focusing the fact that he swung open the door of this trailer, and on the side of the door was a whole bunch of graffiti that said a whole bunch of stuff. And then one of the things was a Diagolon flag, the sort of drawn in dry erase marker, as far as
Yeah,
I
it
can
was like
tell.
Sharpied in.
Because you can't, I mean, that'd be a tough sticker to make, wouldn't it? Just one color. But he did that, and then he was roaming around and talking to people, and some of the clips are so fun. They're so entertaining, because there's a fantastic clip we watched today where you can tell the look on, to me anyway, the look on his face is like, oh, I hope this is worth it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It really does feel like there's a moment when they're explaining what they do with their poop that he realizes he's made a miscalculation. Like, you can just see it on his face. They're like, we got a chemical toilet so we don't have to poop on the lawn. And you can just see he goes, good.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
like, oh, this one's gonna bite me.
There were a lot of good moments, but my favorite was when he was doing like the pictures with the people, and the little gentleman who says he has a warm heart, like literally like takes Pierre's hand and pulls him in. Pierre was like, ah.
God. By all accounts, it really does sound like Poilievre was like, I guess, driving from one event to another. And was like, hey, pull over. I want to talk to these guys.
Sure.
And they're quite a crew, man. Whoo-wee.
It was, I mean, that explains it a little bit better, because I think it would seem weird if it was like a pre-arranged meeting and they had been background checked and all that kind of stuff.
The RCMP cleared it first.
Yeah.
Then it would have been cleared. Like, there would be nobody there if the RCMP had cleared it.
The thing that mystifies me is that they're like protesting affordability, and they've got like a $70,000 truck towing a $100,000 trailer, and they're like, we can't afford to put gas in it. Like,
but the generators are going.
There's a couple of things about that. Like, there's a part of me that wants to be empathetic and say, you know, that there's, even though they're misguided or there's misinformation, as is always the case, it seems, there's real concerns and real issues that they maybe are dealing with. I don't know what they are. I don't think they're what they're professing them to be, or what they think they are. Like blaming every woe on the carbon tax or something seems like, I don't know, listen, from what I know, that's not causing that much heartache. You know what I mean? It certainly is for some businesses, without question. Yeah. But for the vast majority of Canadians, it doesn't really make a massive dent, as far as I know. And there's part of me that wants to be empathetic and try to be understanding. Like, well, what's the actual reason they're upset? Then there's another part of me that thinks this is the problem with a lot of Canadian politeness is thinking we should listen. We should hear those people out. We should hear those people out. Well, it's like, I don't know if it's worth hearing them out. You know what I mean? I don't know.
There's history with that group, though.
With Diagolon?
No. With the people that were protesting that Pierre buddied up with. I went down the rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah.
So they're not new to protesting. I'll just put it that way.
They're regulars in the in the maritime protest scene. There's a scene.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
So, Supreme Court in New Brunswick has been involved. Like, it's a whole thing. So I don't know if, like, was it just a random we were driving by and just saw? I don't know. I mean, they've been there for 4 years. So, yeah.
I mean, it feels like it must have been random, because one of the honest, like, to be totally honest, the first thought that came to my mind when I saw the video was, I didn't know where that line was, but that's the line. And there's a lot of people who were sitting on the fence who are traditionally conservative voters, whatever, are going to look at that and go, no, this isn't, no, this is just not.
This isn't us. This
isn't it. Yeah. Doesn't matter how bad Trudeau is. I'm not going to do it.
I'm sorry. Does somebody else hear the chainsaw?
Okay. So sorry. I'm having a Stuart moment.
Is Shannon over there cutting down your trees?
Shannon's mowing my lawn. No. My lawn guy's just finishing up. So we're going to have to deal with it.
Your lawn guy.
Well, I am in Alberta.
I guess the carbon tax.
Imagine having a lawn guy. I don't have an anything guy.
No.
Yeah.
It's impressive. All I have is one young Dutch woman that comes over and does our garden.
So it should be
a very strong worker.
I'll turn this off now. Sorry. Thanks, Steve. I was just going to blow over it, but whatever. That's fine. Yeah.
I'm glad you pointed it out, Steve. I think it was distracting for the listener. They'd probably people all over the place taking one earbud out, going,
Like, there's
So
something wrong.
my question is why they felt the need to rev that lawnmower so very much. I felt like they were starting a drag race with it.
I think they're just
the location is the answer, Alberta.
It's got flames on the side.
It's got the truck nuts on the back of
Got an F
mower.
Trudeau sticker on the back of it.
Not on my property, it doesn't. I vet them. Okay, sorry. Where were we?
What were we talking about? Oh, yeah, we're talking about just the fact that the first thing that came to mind when I saw the video of Poilievre and that crew and the little side pullover thing was that I thought, oh, this is going to be a bridge too far for some of the people who are on the fence, who are thinking, I don't want to vote for Trudeau and the Liberals. I traditionally vote Conservative. I think my words in my head were, that's it, he's lost. Was just like that, which has kind of been my view about the whole time, was that there's two things. One is conspiratorial, which I'll share just for fun. The other one is what I actually think. I think that there's so much time between now and the next election. I think that the best course of action is to kind of let the Conservatives trip themselves up. Whether or not they will, I don't know. The other conspiratorial side is that he doesn't want to win.
Oh. Mm-hmm. You think he just loves
changed
throwing
his
punches
mind?
from the outside?
I think he's got a good thing going for 2 decades. Why would you rock that boat? You get into power, you actually have to do stuff. You know what I mean?
You're not wrong, but at the same time, I've heard from enough folks who have held office and stuff that or been connected to those who've held office, that when you're sitting in the big chair, you take all the trips, you go to all the things, you get all the perks, you get the speaking tours, you get the right. I'm a little dubious about him not wanting it. It seems like it's all he's wanted his whole life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree, which is why it makes it all the more possible.
Oh, that's how they get you.
Oh, that's how we start a conspiracy. I get it.
But do you think?
I do think it's had a huge impact, though. I don't know if you're as big a social media nerd as I, but I actually checked. If you go on, there's a website called Social Blade where you can check sort of social media follower statistics and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you check Pierre Poilievre's Twitter follows, he lost 55,000 followers last week.
Yes, I saw that. That was fascinating.
Crushed. That's an enormous amount of people to lose followers.
Because he dropped below 1 million, right? Because he was just sitting above 1 million.
Yeah. That's
were they clearing out the bots from the closet? Is that what did it? Or
it's possible.
Real people.
But that would have happened on other
I didn't lose that much. Yeah, I didn't lose anybody that I noticed.
I didn't lose anybody. I don't have.
And I keep tabs on all of my followers.
Yeah, I watch mine very
day.
closely, which is why Ted McLeod 37, you did unfollow, and I have some questions about that.
Where'd you go, Ted? Where'd you go? Are you okay?
There's some dude named Ted McLeod listening to this who's just like, what the hell is happening?
I didn't follow him. So do we think it's a bridge too far? Or do you think there is a bridge too far for conservatives, fence-sitting conservatives?
I think it's another step in a long walk, right? So for Pierre Poilievre, this is going to be the thing. This is exactly what Aaron O'Toole struggled with and honestly failed at, was in order to become conservative leader, you got to court the extreme folks. And then in order to become prime minister, you got to chill out. And Poilievre is trying to hold on to the extreme folks, and he's really confident that he can get all loosey-goosey with that because he's way ahead in the polls. But this whole thing falls apart as soon as he's got to take concrete policy positions. This whole thing falls apart the more times people see him align himself with these sort of more extreme folks, right? You can only plausibly deny it so many times. Mm-hmm. And so I think this one won't be the one that ends it. Is it going to help? No, not by a long shot.
Well, like Stuart said, we've got a long time to the election, so there's a lot more opportunities to have these kinds of rendezvous on the side of the road.
The more you know them, the less you like them.
Well, and I wonder if that's
people say about me as well.
It's a common refrain.
But I don't know. there's a good chunk of those disenfranchised, right? Who think that he is going to save them. There was a post going around Twitter this morning, some guy with, a Confederation flag, and you have to see it. They can't even say Poilievre's name right, but like that again, they're trying to connect that's the base, right? That's Pierre's
Confederate
base.
Flag as opposed to Confederation flag.
Oh, sorry.
Two different. Yeah.
What did I say? Anyway.
Confederation as opposed to like PEI's flag.
Yeah, it's not PEI.
Newfoundland.
No, you're thinking General Lee.
I was just exactly the Dukes of Hazzard flag. So like is obviously people who align with that, Pierre's the guy. How many of those are in Canada?
That's my question. I was saying that to Shannon earlier today when she wasn't vacuuming, and she could hear me. That's terrible. For people who have just joined the podcast, Shannon doesn't vacuum all the time, nor does she have to. Actually, she rarely vacuums, to be honest.
Oh, now expectation, now demand.
No, wait, hang on. Owen, cut this part out.
He doesn't listen. You're fine.
Stuart
That's
is
true. She
canceled.
doesn't listen. Exactly. Just by Shannon. Just canceled by my wife. But Shannon and I were talking about this earlier, and I was saying how if that base seems so important, and I don't even like using the word base just because it sounds so derogatory now as well. But if that group segment of population or segment of voters or potential voters is so important. But why though? Is there really that many? Is there that many? It doesn't seem to me like there's that many people who are politically active, meaning they will go to the Rotary complex and vote on voting day. Like, are there that many people like that? Do we think?
I mean, from the things we see on social media, it looks like it, but I really don't think there is. I think they tend to be, the ones doing the protesting on the side of the highway. So it looks like there's a lot of people. I really don't. There's not a lot of Canadians that have the time to go and dedicate to doing that. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's far more in the middle who maybe, to your point, take a look at this and go, ugh, right? Let's wait another year and a half and see where things are at, because that is not representing the majority of Canada.
Well, this is what
Canada's out with people like that.
But like Canada forever, like it's always been sort of an old axiom of Canadian politics that if like Canadians don't vote in governments, they vote out governments. Mm-hmm. And so every time around, it seems like they're assessing, is the person sitting on the outside worse than who's in? It's never really like, do I prefer? And Pierre Poilievre really, it's tricky because he's trying to hold on to people. Yeah, for sure. And they're not maybe as numerous as it seems, but he's a very strategic sort of politician. And so it's really more a question of what ridings is he trying to hold. And so I think he's trying to send a signal to like those Alberta ridings and the winnable maritime ridings that he's just hoping to send a signal to. Like, is this rooted in ideology? Is it?
Do we think that he's like, because you're right, he is very strategic. He's not an idiot. He's a smart guy.
Well, let's not go crazy here.
But I mean, he knows he's been around the block. He knows what he's doing. He knows the game. So I would think that he's trying to be as strategic as possible. So is it just like, I would think there's a campaign manager or something who's saying, or an advisor at least saying, we should stop. We should talk to these people, and we know we're not idiots. We know this is all the videos. Even if we don't put it out, all the video is going to go out. We know that's going to happen. It's the same thing with the Alex Jones thing. It's like, let's not denounce them. There's got to be people in those offices, the conservative offices, saying, this is our best move is to say nothing and to just, is to actively engage that portion of the population. Or conversely, is it just him saying it'd be cool to do this?
I'm sure it's him because, again, as we've talked about before, he's been touring quite a while. That does make you tired. Maybe you have a little in the back of the car, and then this seems like a good idea. I'm doing that so that
making no suggestions or allegations
whatsoever.
Unrelated,
insinuating. Yeah,
hand thing. Don't worry about it.
If people aren't watching, people won't know.
People do watch, Lisa. This is a video as well.
I know, but I'm just saying.
All right.
But I think it's twofold. It could just be him because who's going to say no to Pierre? But on the flip side, if it is a PR person saying, hey, this is going to be a good idea, then you've got people giving you bad advice.
Yeah.
You know, like
this happens all the time, though. And this is sort of famously what's happened in Saskatchewan with politics, but it's happening everywhere, is these leaders are no longer, especially on the conservative side, but a little bit everywhere, are no longer bringing in questioning voices. The leader gets elected. They pick a press secretary who says exactly what they want to say. They fill their ranks. They align themselves with the people who say exactly what they want to say. It's about compliance. It's about, yes, sir, you are absolutely right, sir. Like in Saskatchewan, Scott Moe will not be questioned in cabinet. That doesn't happen. And that's likely what's happening with Poilievre here, where it's maybe there are people in the room who are supposed to be saying no, but Poilievre hired him. He's not going to hire anybody who's going to disagree with him.
Exactly. And I mean, then in the past we had when these photo ops have happened, you know, the plausible deniability from politicians of saying, well, we can't be aware of everybody that's coming up.
We don't know these folks who are
we don't
on
know
social
anybody
media
who's
daily.
on trial for stuff. Like, we don't know. We're just shaking hands. And, you know, Danielle Smith, when she took the picture, was it, I don't know, last year with the guy wearing the like straight pride or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
I don't read anything from the neck down that anybody's wearing.
Right? I was just making eye contact with people. How you doing?
Whoa, my eyes are up here.
I just laser in on people.
Don't stare at my politically charged slogan.
But the pictures get out and it satisfies the need of a certain group. And then the politician or the political party has the plausible deniability. Well, we're just being social with people. So, I mean, it works. Again, I think the people in the middle are the ones that are going to go,
That's what I
somebody
think.
that's not going to be posing and coming out of a questionable trailer in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, I would, if I was, I'm not not versed in political campaigning or elections or anything like that. This is just the opinion of an idiot. But I would think, you know, if I was the Conservatives, I'd be like, well, listen, people already are sick of Trudeau. They're tired of Trudeau. We can capitalize on that. Let's go after the people who still like Trudeau. Let's go and take that segment of population.
Well, and
because you're not going all the way over to the left.
The middle.
Yeah. You're not going all the way over to the left to grab the NDP people because you're never going to get them.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you go to the Liberals and say, let's convince the Liberals that we're the better choice. We're going to listen, all the good stuff you like about the Liberals, we're going to maintain that. But we're not them.
it's going to be the biggest miss on the empty net imaginable if the Conservatives don't
think so?
win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's the table is set in the public to vote for anybody who isn't the Liberals right now. And the fact that the Conservatives are doing this sort of stuff is chasing away a ton of moderate supporters. Like there are a lot of people who don't, know what Diagolon is, but I think most folks know at least kind of who Alex Jones is and that he's maybe not somebody you want your politicians aligning themselves with.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's got to add up at a certain point. You can't just be like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who this Alex Jones person is.
Well, I think that plausible deniability starts to look like playing dumb, and that only works for a little while. After a while, I think everyone starts to realize, well, you can't listen. You're not playing dumb. You just actually are dumb then.
Yeah.
Or
either
you
you're
think
just
that the voter is dumb and you're playing that game, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, they're either insulting the voters' intelligence or they're just wildly uninformed about politics, which is their day job.
Which is what they do.
Like, if only there was some sort of
sense.
politician position that was like meant to know what's going on in politics. So it's interesting, though. I do want to contrast this because there's a really interesting contrast that comes out with when we're talking about sort of like potential challengers to Trudeau or the threats to Trudeau. Did you see Mark Carney really rattle the Conservatives' cages?
Yes.
He scared the hell out of them just by giving a competent speech about the economy.
I think it was weird that he caused so much kerfuffle. Like, I don't know why he would have.
Did you see the motion that the Conservatives brought forward about it? They're
No.
demanding that Mark Carney testify in front of the finance committee because he so obviously wants to be the leader of the Liberals. And so, like, they want to ask him about the carbon tax and his tax plan and whether or not he wants to destroy the energy sector. And it's like, he is a private citizen, guys. You don't have a policy platform. Why does he need a policy platform? Like,
yeah. Just some dude. I think that, Mark Carney has, you can tell these aspirations for political power for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty transparent.
It is, but I think he's also a little bit of a Michael Ignatieff, or Ignatieff.
Let's just call him Mike.
Mike. In that, I think it's traditionally Canadians kind of cool to the idea of someone swanning back into the country and sort of going, listen, guys, I'll take care of it. It's like, no. We don't want that. We don't need that.
Yeah.
So I found it really interesting that the Conservatives were like all upset about it. It was like bizarre. It was like, why? What's the big deal? Like, who cares? Who's actually paying? Who in that base of people? Who in that group of people that you're pulling over to the side of the road cares what Mark Carney says? I don't get it.
The former head of the Bank of Canada shared an opinion,
or knows who Mark Carney is. Like, I mean, that's
exactly.
Anyway.
Anyway, thanks for listening.
Just flip the table and leave.
It's just so frustrating.
Well, like, it's how much of this convoy stuff, when you look at it, like, I was literally just looking into this stuff earlier. I was down the rabbit hole too, and I went to their Facebook page, and it's the same slogans. It's hold the line. It's freedom convoy. And that's been 3 years now, yeah?
Yeah.
Like, I think a huge portion of this is the same tiny group of people who felt this, like, moment in the sun where the nation paid attention to them.
Yeah.
And they will not let it go. Like, while COVID is still obviously happening, as a recent reminder, the world has largely moved forward, at least to some degree. And so they couldn't keep manufacturing outrage about COVID restrictions because there are no COVID restrictions. So they just, like, glommed on to the next thing to be mad about, and it seems like the carbon tax, so I guess it's the carbon tax. But if you go and listen to the video, they barely talk about the carbon tax. They just talk about Trudeau and how much they hate Trudeau and where they store their poop.
It's very reminiscent of, the 40-something who talks about, how they could have made it to the pros in high school football.
Oh, football dads!
I feel I think that's what this group of people, it's their thing, right? And they don't want to let it go. So if it's not mandates, then it's this, then it's that. But really, it's just all Trudeau. They just don't like Trudeau, and they're going to come up with any excuse to.
So in Regina, they would drive up and down the main street of the city all day on Saturdays for like years. And it's like, guys, nobody even really knows what you're mad about anymore.
The trucks would go up and down, like, downtown Edmonton to the Ledge on Saturday afternoons.
It's like, all you're doing is loudly announcing you have nothing better to do.
Could have made it to the pros.
Which brings us back to the point of, like, why would you, as a campaign manager or a staffer or a political advisor, why would you have your potential prime ministerial candidate spend his time courting that group? Like, I've got a pretty big ego, and I think I'm somewhat not totally stupid, but I think I'm largely dumb. And I can see it, and I look at it and I go, well, there's just not that many people. Like, it's just obviously not representative. Because when you go and talk to people, and I live in the world, and I go out into the world and in my small town, and I go to other small towns and then go to the big city, it's like, I'm not getting the vibe that those people are like majority of people at all.
It's about making that opinion feel popular, though. It's about making the anti-carbon tax. It's finding a little pocket of people who believe the thing that you want to make look popular. And you go wander into them and you go, look at how popular it is. Please don't turn the camera around to show that they're on an empty stretch of highway and there's like 12 of them.
Right.
Right. But like, it's about creating the appearance of an idea being popular. And so I think he just gloms onto whoever is convenient. And in this case, they drove past a carbon tax protest and thought, I know what'll work.
You guys heard of axe the tax?
But it made them feel good. I guarantee they were just beaming, right?
Absolutely. And I totally get that. And I totally understand that. And I appreciate why they would feel good about that.
Yeah, the group text was popping off.
It's certainly the Telegram. But it's sort of reminiscent of the thanks, Obama. It's got a little bit of that feel where it's kind of like, you're just generally disgruntled, and axe the tax or whatever, or F Trudeau, that just fits the bill. It's like an expletive, basically. It just works. It just comes out of your mouth nice and easy, and it seems to cover everything. And you also feel probably somewhat engaged and somewhat actively involved in politics. And I think more importantly, and I was thinking this today, is that I think that in light of having gone through the pandemic and all the uncertainty that was involved in that period of time, people are desperate to feel like they belong to something that is concrete and is not going to let them down. And we've talked about this before, but I really feel that's a huge part of the psychological aspect of a lot of people who are like, this is why I say F Trudeau, is because I'm just angry and I think things would be better if they were the way they were before. Mm-hmm. Before what? The pandemic, probably. You know what I mean? Which is, there's a little bit of sadness to that at the same time.
Yeah, they just want to feel like they're a part of something.
They do, right? I mean, Psych 101, really. But there was one clip, excuse me, where I'm going to say the leader of this little protest had asked Pierre, is there anything you want to ask the people that are on the front line, the people that are doing this every day? And he just, I'm going to axe the tax. Like, you couldn't even take the moment.
Fantastic.
Right? You couldn't take the moment to be like, yeah, tell me about your struggles. Tell me about, what brought you out here. Nope. Just hands in pocket. No, I'm going to axe and very sullen. I'm going to axe the tax. So don't be pissing them off either, Pierre.
I did so enjoy that clip as well, because he says, I'm going to axe the tax. And then his next line is softer. I'm going to axe the tax.
It's just like he likes saying it, eh? Just, gonna axe that tax.
And I think, if there's surely there was some people in attendance there who went, I don't know if this is our guy. I don't know,
man. Like, you've met politicians. There's a reality distortion field around politicians where you're like, I'm going to go give them a piece of my mind. And then they're like, oh, hey there, nice to meet you. And you're like, hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, of course. They're congenial. They're charismatic. That's why they're good at politics.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So who knows?
But
maybe he mystified them with his swirling eyes.
Lesson learned.
Like a Tex Avery cartoon.
It was bizarre. I just thought, man, there's so much road between now and the next election that it's like, if there's more of this shenanigans, I don't know. No one has to worry about anything.
We're done.
But I think exactly. I think, Lisa, you had done a video recently where you talked about Melissa Lantzman on Vashi Kapelos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what's it called? Power Play is what it's called? Sure it is. And just how I watched your video, and that's how I saw the clip of Melissa, and I just thought I felt bad for her, because she was just reiterating catchphrases. Mm-hmm. In response, like as an answer,
with the hand yeah,
it was choreographed, yeah. And it was like, oh, this is sad. Mm-hmm. Like, it was one of those things I watched and I was like, man, that sounds. I mean, I know politics is a lot like that. Doesn't matter which party you're happening. There's a lot of toe the party line. There's a lot of messaging that has to be unified and all that kind of stuff, just the way politics works. But at the same time, I was like, they've got to step it up, because this is not going to cut it after a while. Like, I think everybody's going to clue into the fact that I don't think they have any answers, guys.
It could have been answered any other way. All that needed to be said was, we're going to be looking into it. And, when we get into power, we'll make those decisions. That's all you needed to say. Yeah. You didn't need to say, go back 8 years to talk about what Trudeau may or may not have done. I
did when we have a platform.
When we have a platform, yeah. Exactly.
In the future times.
When we have a platform, I'm going to bring it to you first. I thought that was funny as well.
Yeah.
It was what are you trying to like dangle a carrot?
That's why I love Ashley, because she was like, that's not what I asked you. Love it.
Plus, I think that's what makes Vashi great is that she's like, I don't care. Like Vashi's mean to everybody.
Yeah, I love it.
Which is great.
I feel that
that's
energy.
what you want.
Yeah.
You want everybody to be like not be smitten by anybody. You want everyone to be
the reality distortion
questions.
field doesn't work on her.
It doesn't for whatever reason.
Because they're going on her show. She's not like going, it's not a presser where she has to gain entry, right? They're coming to her. So you should know what you're going up against. And if you don't have a response, you better prep something because she's not going to leave you alone until you answer the question.
Yeah. We like you, Vashi.
Yeah, we love you.
I didn't say love. I like.
Well, I love her. She was
Also, Vashi, our email is below if you want to make a guest appearance. Just
right? Just,
That's right, exactly.
I'm an Edmonton girl. Yeah.
We're just going to change gears briefly here as we move into the latter half of the show. And that is
into the latter days.
In case we find something untoward in our carry-on. That's a very weak callback, but that's okay.
And the music fades in.
Indubitably.
I've got another AI theme. Hang on. I do actually, but I won't play it now.
Okay.
Just recently, the Ontario government passed a bill or law that says that kids in schools, primary kids anyway, are not going to be allowed to have phones in classrooms, and middle school and high school kids are not going to be able to have them during class time. And I have lots of feelings about this. I understand as a teacher for a very brief amount of time, I understand the amount of distraction that phones provide. I understand the mental health stress and anxiety that can be and ill-due effects that can be had from having your phone as a teenager having your phone or a kid having your phone. At the same time, I have a huge problem with this idea that if we just take things away from kids for a period of time, and when they're done that period of time, we just expect them to know what the hell they're doing. And that bothers me. And maybe I don't know if I'm overthinking that or not. But Steve, you actually are a teacher.
Indeed.
So you'll know better than I will.
So I don't know. It's a tricky question because doing blanket policy from the top down in education is always a tricky move because you're always going to miss a lot of important situations. Like I have students who use their phone to manage their blood sugar monitors or their insulin pumps.
Right.
Like, how's that going to work? I have students who have severe anxiety, and having their phone and listening to music at their desk makes it a lot easier for them to self-regulate. What's necessarily the problem with that? The problem is that there's lots of people who have unmanaged relationships with their technology. And that's not just kids, that's adults too. But here's the thing about blanket bans in schools. Vapes have been banned in schools since time immemorial, and yet kids continue to vape. They find a way. Like telling a group of teenagers not to do something is a pretty quick path to get them to get very creative at doing that thing. Like phones are banned in prisons too, but they have phones in prisons.
They somehow, yes.
Like I don't know. It seems like it's partly wildly unrealistic and rooted in a lack of any understanding of how individual classrooms run. But I think also there's a level of frustration with behavior in schools at a broader, more general level. And that frustration is being pointed at cell phones right now because it's an easy thing to blame. It's really easy to say, well, phones are a problem because kids get distracted by their phones. Yeah, but also if a kid's playing Geometry Dash on the bus, they're not throwing hands. Right? Yeah. So there's wins and losses here. But what it really comes down to is there are a lot of kids who just went through a mass collective trauma event, right? COVID was really hard on kids, and we are seeing the long-term effects of that now, right? If you have a kid right now who is in grade, say, 6, their first year of school that was disrupted was grade 2. and they haven't really had a year that wasn't fully disrupted since, right? Like COVID's still going around. Students are still, there's lots of students who are reluctant to get together or go to big events because they're nervous about COVID. And a lot of kids got a lot more reluctant to go to social settings. And so their safe space is tech. It's online. It's their Discords and their Snapchats and all that stuff. Now, is helping to move kids away from that tech dependence a good thing? Yeah, absolutely. But is a blanket ban going to do it? I have my strong doubts. I think the issues with tech are way deeper than just phones in schools. Sorry, I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but I learned today
professional.
A study came out that showed that about 50% of student time in grades above 5 is being spent working independently on technology. Students are spending about 50% of their class time working independently on like Chromebooks or iPads.
Right.
The phones aren't the problem. There are far deeper problems than the phones. And so it is creating a blanket top-down ban to address a single symptom of far deeper, more complicated issues in our schools. Rant complete.
So is that the justification that it's just distracting in classrooms, and so we need to get rid of them? Well, that's like I remember being in junior high and doodling, in classes that I didn't like, so nobody took away my pen and paper. Like, you're trying to push sand uphill with these kinds of things, and understandably there are things that are distractions, but teachers can set parameters within their classrooms. I think putting a giant ban on something, like Steve said, just makes it all the more appealing. And how do you take that away from children that have grown up with technology, right? Like, let's use it appropriately.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something to do with respect here too, right? Like, if the students
respect children.
But if the students feel respected,
did you say you don't respect children?
No, like conservative governments don't respect children.
Right.
Oh, I thought you said you personally didn't. I don't respect children.
Like, if the kids feel respected and they respect the space and the rules and the expectations and all that stuff, if that exists, then it's not a big deal. Like, I'll be honest, in my classroom, like, I haven't really had a lot of tech issues. It's not really been a concern. And so now, is that not necessarily everybody's experience? Sure, of course.
Sure.
But we need to look at this on a much broader scale, right? We had kids, I really think it goes under acknowledged that kids went through a mass trauma. They, saw their grandparents locked up and couldn't go visit them, and in many cases lost them and weren't able to say goodbye or grieve in the traditional ways, and all of these different things. But there's been no collective act of grief or any collective act of recovery. We just all got back to work. Kids, nobody's even really had the conversation with kids of, we know you went through something really hard. Let's at least acknowledge that and unpack it a little bit. That hasn't happened at any sort of systemic scale. And so we're going to blame kids that they're not looking up into the world that we presented them that very obviously doesn't give a damn about them.
Yeah.
Right? They saw what happened in COVID. They saw that, they couldn't visit their grandparents, but they had to sit 30 of them in a classroom and told they couldn't leave their desks. Because the wheels of society must turn on. And so, like, we have done nothing to reclaim the interest of these kids, and then we're blaming them for not being interested.
I think it's a fascinating perspective because I think it's pretty accurate. You in that perspective of saying that these kids going through this mass trauma of the pandemic and lockdowns and all that kind of stuff, and that's uncertainty that came with it. And then, one of the things that got us through that was technology, was our phones and our iPads and our computers and all that kind of stuff. And then to come back and go, listen, we're not going to talk about what we went through. Let's just forget that. And also, the technology is evil now.
Like, has there even been a conversation
sense
of a national monument or tribute to the people we lost?
I don't know. But what's interesting is I did an interview meeting type thing with, I believe, Public Health Canada. And my point was, and I was told it was shared by a number of people, was that we don't realize how dark the time was. We're going to need to address that before we can properly move past it. And I've been kind of surprised at the fact that there hasn't been something from a federal level, especially with this touchy-feely liberal government.
Those meat-eating hard liberals.
But I'm surprised they haven't done something from a federal level where they've said, we're going to somehow mark what we went through and listen. Like you could talk about, go talk to somebody, find a therapist, go see a psychologist, go talk to your doctor, talk to a student counselor, student guidance counselor, whatever, or whatever, just like to properly let the kids know. Because I'm sure there's probably lots of kids out there who are very confused, who are thinking, I don't feel great about doing this. And also you're telling me now again, like I said, I had my phone is what I did all my schoolwork on. And now you're telling me I'm not allowed to because it's really bad for me. So
my brain went to a really dark place because that's what it tends to do sometimes. But I was just thinking while Steve was talking about, and knock wood, like hopefully we don't have those issues as much in Canada. But I think about all the school shootings that we hear about in the U.S. and how that contact and communication happens through cell phones, right? Texting your parent, texting your friend in the next class, like just notify. Like that's, I'm not going to say it doesn't happen in Canada. We don't have it as much, I think, as a threat. But can you imagine? Can you imagine if, everybody comes into the high school, drops their cell phones in the high school in the office?
It's not that hard to imagine. Like Lalash happened in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
But also I can tell you from personal experience. I've been in multiple school-wide lockdowns and many of them have been scary. But I will tell you, you bring up the idea of cell phones being able to reduce the risk. I can tell you a time that is access to cell phones would have saved a lot of trouble. And it wound up being silly. I'll preface this by saying it wound up being silly.
Sure.
But we were given very specific instructions because we are required to do emergency drills for like if there's an intruder in the building multiple times a year. At least I think it's 3 times a year, like a fire drill. And so the kids huddle in the corner away from the desk and the police come through and clear the building. The actual police come through and they check every door and they knock to make sure that you're not going to open it. And they check the handle to make sure it's locked, which scares the kids every time. Sure. And the kids have to sit in the corner of the room in dead silence for like 20 minutes, half an hour. But one time I was sitting in my school and we were going through a normal day and we were under specific instructions. Oh, you're supposed to position yourself, you barricade the door and then position yourself between the kids and the door with an improvised weapon. Is the so I've got a stick in my classroom that I keep for it. And so we're also told not to send any text messages or kids aren't supposed to have their phones or any of that stuff. An emergency is called and the kids are all huddled in the corner and we're there for like 2, maybe 3 hours just waiting for this to be cleared. And this was very stressful. The kids were nervous. I was nervous. I was trying to keep them calm, right? But like you do the best you can.
Sure.
Turns out there was reports of somebody walking around nearby the school with a weapon. They were carrying around a weapon. And so the school was locked down when they tried to figure out what was going on. I was out supervising at that recess. I know exactly what that person saw. It was a person who worked for the power company picking up sticks and carrying them back to his truck, but he was carrying them like a rifle.
Right.
If I had just been able to text the office and say, hey, I saw what happened, it was nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Situation resolved. Right.
And save some trauma. Yeah.
Definitely.
And this is why we need to pay our teachers more, people, because that story. No, but like that story, being in a classroom for 2 hours with children, not knowing what's happening on the outside, like pay our teachers more.
Yeah.
Oh, there was one class who was in the middle of phys ed, and if you're in the middle of phys ed, you huddle in the equipment room.
Oh, jeez.
God.
This is the reality, folks. We all keep, if your classroom door has a window, the expectation is to have something available to cover the window at any given time so that nobody can see it. Like it's a whole thing. Like if you like, this is a huge problem is we're expecting kids to be bought in, focused, energized, engaged. But like, do they necessarily feel safe in a place that they have to learn to huddle in a corner multiple times a year?
Right.
Like did the experience they went through during COVID make them feel safe in schools? Like, do they feel cared for? We try our best, but systemically, are they like, yeah, things are great? Like,
I'm going to try to steer this back to a slightly happier
Sorry.
thing.
ramble.
I know. I took it dark.
Good.
Sorry.
It was really good. It's good. I think it's great.
I can tell you a really funny story that starts out slightly terrifying. It is about the time that my school was terrified that there was a bomb, and there was not a bomb. I promise you there was not a bomb. It was my very first year as a teacher, and my principal came into the classroom and she's like, I really need your help with something very strange. I need you to come out and just talk to me away from the kids. And I'm like, okay, sure. What's going on? She goes, the caretaker isn't here right now and you're the only male in the building. So I'm going to ask you to check something in the men's room for me. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Why do you have a ladder? And she goes, a kid was climbing on the urinals, peeked in the roof, and he thinks he found a bomb. And I was like, okay, okie dokie. And so
I gotta go.
Your plan is for me to just go look at yon bomb? And she's like, yeah, go give it an old eyeball. I was like, okay, did we ask any follow-up questions to the young man who was climbing on the urinals? Like, no, he's off and doing something else. Okay, sure. So I climbed this ladder and pushed the ceiling tile out of the way. And I look up and all I see is this like cylinder with red LED numbers on it or LCD numbers on it counting down. And it's like
that's
4,
bomb-esque.
3, 2. And I'm like, oh, well,
it's too late for
1,
you.
0. And then the urinals flush. And so,
why does the urinal system need a countdown LED light?
Because boys are gross. I was going to say, cut the blue wire. Cut the blue wire.
No, I see this thing, and there's like 3 seconds left, and it's like, well, this is the big one. All right, here we go. Men's room on top of a ladder. This is how we go.
Yeah, you've totally you've ignored the whole idea of why would someone first of all put a bomb in a school in Saskatchewan in the boys' room above the urinals?
Well, this is it. It's like, when you're just sitting there and like everything happening, it's weird, so I'm just gonna keep moving forward. I don't know, man.
You have to suspend your disbelief of all that stuff and then take it even a step further with if they were going to put a bomb, they would obviously have a high-tech LED countdown clock like they do in 24.
Right? That's what I envisioned the whole thing.
That's exactly what it looked like. And first-year teacher
Chloe,
Steve is just like, yeah, sure, man. I'll check your bomb. Whatever you need.
Kiefer Sutherland comes out. I'm ready. Oh man!
Oh, God.
Okay.
All right, I was going to go back to say about how I think you had touched on respect in regards to the cell phones. I feel like that's probably, in my mind, what needs to happen is this idea of you can't. It's just like AI or anything. You can't take technology away from people once it's been out there. It's in their hands. They're going to find a way to use it. They're going to find a way to have it, with them and with their phones and all that kind of stuff. But we need to, I think, instruct people, students, adults as well, to respect other people. Like the reason we're not going to look on our phones right now is because we're doing this. And this is a benefit for you to pay attention because then you will get this. You need a why. You can't just say you can't use your phones. And then I think you need to tell people why. I remember doing speaking engagements for the first time back in 2014. And when I started doing that stuff, and being absolutely shocked at business conferences, the amount of people that I'd get up in front of a room full of people and they'd all be on their phones. And I'd be like, what are you doing? But it was like, it reminded me of, we used to live in our first house. Our neighbors didn't have a television because television was bad for you. And it was
Clearly.
whatever. And I remember vividly, the guy came over to our house and our TV was on while he was sitting in another room with me, but you could still see the TV from where we were at my desk. And we were working on some graphic thing on a computer. And he came in and looked, and he couldn't remove his eyes from the screen. Like, it was not an interesting program. There's nothing suspenseful happening. It was just the magic moving picture box had completely put him in a spell. Mm-hmm. And I thought, this is a good reason for him to watch more TV, because you don't need to be totally, incapacitated by the sight of a TV. Same thing with telephones to me, or smartphones. Telephones, that's how old I am. Same thing with like cell phones or smartphones, is that I think we need to teach kids to be like, don't be beholden to this. This is an amazing tool, but it doesn't have to be your be all and end all. There's way more stuff in life to focus on than that at any point in time.
For 40 minutes. For 40 minutes at a time, right? So yeah.
Or 115 if you're in high school.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can pay attention in short bursts. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
We can. They can.
As we finish off here, of course, as is tradition, we're going to end off with an improvised theme song. And even though it's not the AI version that you heard at the top of the show, which was really good and heartfelt, I think.
Oh.
I know that Steve had said he got some.
This is a singing bowl that I stole from my wife.
Unlike
she's alive, though, right?
that you slept with her dead grandmother.
No, I got it.
Stop saying that. He's still a teacher.
No, so her and I, we do this delightful thing where some Christmases we do these like themed gifts.
I know where this is going.
No, and one of them is thing they didn't even know existed, and so mine was a singing bowl for her when she meditates.
Oh, okay, that's good. I thought you were going to say things she didn't know existed. Grandma. I didn't know if it was going to be the same thing.
You're really stuck on the grandma thing. I feel like there's a deeper conversation to be had here.
It's unusual, and I don't feel comfortable.
I feel like it's going to end up in a book at some point, Steve.
Probably. Exactly. There you go. Okay, and Lisa, what are you playing today? I have keys
because I just grabbed whatever was closest to me.
That's fantastic. I'll be handling vocals, and who would like to set the rhythm?
That's you, key lady. No, the bowl just makes a noise.
Podcast is broken. Podcast is broken. Podcast is broken. Podcast is broken. That's good.
That was nice.
It was meditative,
God,
right?
Stop.
Right
up until the end.
It creates an energy in the room.
An energy.
Yeah, it certainly does.
And you know that it has magical energy vibes because it came from Amazon.
Excellent.
Not the Amazon, just the
Amazon.
The faraway land of Amazon.
Yes.
Do you have anything untoward in your bag, sir? I do. I have this singing bowl I got from Amazon.
The Amazon?
Sure, the only one I know.
Indubitably, sir.
Thank you so much for watching and or listening. We greatly appreciate it. Remember, you can subscribe at podcastisbroken.ca and you will get email notifications every time a new episode comes out. We have lots of fun episodes coming up, and we've even talked about doing them live at some point in time.
Coming.
We'll see. And also, if you're going to subscribe now because, who knows, maybe it'll start costing you money. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Probably it'll start everything
Stuff to
costing you money.
come.
Carbon tax, that's what it is. Right. Carbon tax. We have to cover for the carbon tax.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be like 13 cents extra per podcast. It's going to be a whole thing.
Per episode. Oh, my God. It's so much money.
It's a lot of math.
So much per download. 13 cents a download, I think it is now. So thanks for watching and or listening. We'll see you guys next week. Take care. See ya.
Take care, folks.